So this is the 11-4 Day 1 notes. Now it's really important, we're going to add and subtract fractions today, so you have to remember that you must have common denominators to add or subtract. So in this very first problem, we're going back to 6th grade, Mrs. Kitchen. You notice how we already have the like terms at the bottom. So all we have to do is add the top numbers. So 3 plus 7 gives you 10, and you keep that denominator the same. So 10 over 2. Now you try and simplify as much as possible. So if you take 10 and you divide by 2, you're going to end up with 5. So your final answer for part A will be 5. For part B, we're actually subtracting. Now it's a good habit to get into for fractions to change your subtraction sign to an addition sign and to change the top of the next one to a negative. So instead of subtracting, we're going to add a negative. So in this case, 3 is our common denominator, so we don't have to do anything, but I now have 1 plus negative 13. 1 plus negative 13 will give me negative 12. And again, I keep the denominator at a 3. Then again, I try to simplify. Negative 12 divided by 3 should give me negative 4. Pretty easy so far, and it actually stays easy as long as we have common denominators. So this next problem, we're actually going to use our algebra. So notice again how we have common denominators. We're adding, so again, we're just going to add the top. 4 plus 7 should give you 11 over 3y. Then you try and simplify. Does anything go into 3 and 11? No. So you're going to leave that just as your final answer, 11 over 3y. Part B, again you have common denominator already, so you don't worry about the denominator, you keep it the same, x minus 2. And you add the top. So this is 3x plus, this should look like a 1x. So 3 plus 1 will give you 4 x's on the top. So 4x over x minus 2. This is my final answer. There's nothing I can simplify or factor or take away. The bottom here, we're now subtracting. And again, we still have common denominators. They're still exactly the same. But again, like I said before, we're going to change the subtraction to an addition, and everything on the top is going to switch signs. So they're going to become negative. Negative 4x plus negative 3. So when I add, I'm going to keep the denominator the same. So 3x squared minus x minus 2 stays the same at the bottom. At the top, I'm going to combine like terms. So I have 7x plus negative 4x, which gives me 3x. And then for the numbers, I have 5 plus negative 3, which gives me a positive 2. I could factor the bottom, but I'm not going to. It was common, so I just leave it common. And so my final answer is 3x plus 2 over 3x squared minus x minus 2. Part B, again, I have common denominators, and again, I'm subtracting, so I'm going to change that to a plus sign, change the 7 to negative 7. I'm going to keep the denominator the same, z plus 3, and I'm going to add 2 plus negative 7, which is negative 5. Again, there's nothing I can do. Negative 5 over z plus 3 is your final answer. Go ahead and flip this page over. So on the back side, we are adding and subtracting without common denominators. So what do we have to do to get them to be the same? So if I look at these first two denominators, I have 3 and 6. Well, I can multiply 2 times 3 to get 6 on the bottom, but what I do to the bottom, I also have to do to the top. So 2 times 2 will give me 4, over 2 times 3 will give me 6. With 6 being on the bottom of this first one, I now have common denominators, so I can keep the second one exactly the same. So now I have 4 6 plus 5 6. So when I add those, I'm going to keep the denominator the same and just add 4 plus 5, which is 9/6. And now I simplify as possible. So what goes into 9 and 6? That's going to be 3. So divide top and bottom by 3, or take out 3, and that'll leave me with 3 halves, or 3 over 2, as my final answer. For part B, again, I need to get these to be common. I have 7 and 21. I can multiply 7 by 3 to get 21, which means I also have to multiply the 4 by 3. So 3 times 4 will be 12 over 21, which is what I wanted, minus 3 over 21, because that guy can stay the same. Because it's a minus, I'm going to change it to a positive with a negative 3. So now I'm adding 12 plus negative 3, which will give me 9 over 21. And then you try and simplify. What goes into 9 and 21? That's going to be 3. So divide top and bottom by 3. So your final answer will be 3/7. Okay, so again, that was a little bit of a review from 6th grade when you had to find common denominators. We're going to use that same principle with algebra. So these lower two problems, this first one has 2x and x as my denominators. I can multiply the x by 2 to get a common denominator of 2x. So I have to do that to the top and the bottom of just this fraction. So my first fraction can stay 6 over 2x. I can keep the subtraction for now, and then I multiply. 4 times 2 is 8 over x times 2 is 2x. Now I have common denominators. Again, because this is subtraction, I'm going to change it from subtraction to plus and negative. It's just a good habit. And then I'm going to do 6 plus negative 8, which gives me negative 2 over 2x. Now here I'm going to try and simplify. I ignore the x. Is there something that goes into 2 and negative 2? I would believe so. It's going to be 2, so divide top and bottom by 2. So I'll have negative 1 over just x. And that'll be my final simplified fraction. Part B, I have 6x on one side, and I have 2x squared. Okay, so I need to make sure that my numbers match and my letters match. So to get my numbers to match, I have to multiply the second fraction by 3, top and bottom. To get my letters to match, I have to multiply this first fraction by another x to make sure that it gets to be x squared and not just 1x. So what I do to the bottom multiplying by x, I also have to do to the top. So if I actually do this multiplication, 5 times x should give me 5x over 6x times x will give me 6x squared. I keep the plus in between. Then I move on to the next fraction, and this side I'm multiplying by 3. So 3 times 3 is 9 over 2x squared times 3 will give me 6x squared. Now notice all of that multiplication gave me what I wanted, common denominators. They're now both identical, both number being 6 and the letter being x squared. So now I just have to add. Now can I combine 5x plus 9? No, they're not common denominators, or they're not common terms. So I have to leave it 5x plus 9 over 6x squared. And that'll be your final simplified fraction. That's as much as you can do on that guy.